Sorry.
What's your?
Wow. Which one is that?
I'm at 24.
Say 3 legs.
I'm at 24 currently. But I don't play a lot, so I think if I played more often, I'd probably be around there, 12, 10.
You don't want to be the borough manager.
Like I just joined my first league this summer, so I just started getting my handicap, so I haven't had really a chance. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've played for a long time, but just haven't played like consistently, in the league. Right.
Gentlemen, ready?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to call the work session to order. Will please rise for the pledge of allegiance, please. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas, it's your show.
First item is proposed ordinance number 96422. This is an ordinance to vacate or abandon St. John Street. St. John Street is a very small 100-foot section of road that goes from Unity Center Road down on the left-hand side, if you will, of St. John's parking lot there towards, heading down towards Old Leechburg there, Miller's Lane. The road itself was never actually maintained by the borough. We don't plow it, we don't pave it, we don't patch it, but it is listed as a borough street. As part of this whole project, I don't know if you guys remember a while ago, as part of this whole project, the parking lot expansion project at St. John's, that we brought this to your attention that there was that paper street there. And you asked us to talk with St. John's and see if they were interested in having us abandon it. If and when council abandons it, then the adjoining property owners share in 50% of the new property. So this is the ordinance to abandon that right of way.
Any discussion? Okay, agenda item.
Item number 2 is the Knapscott Teeter lot line revision. This was approved back in May. Another one of those lot line revisions or subdivisions that the applicant was unable, it was approved, the applicant was unable to get it recorded at the county within 90 days. You just need to reapprove it.
Discussion? Agenda item.
Item number 3 is the Flynn's Tire parking lot expansion. Flynn's Tire is down on 286 there. It's a commercially zoned property. They are expanding their parking lot to add additional spaces for their parking lot for their employees and the required stormwater management controls that are required as part of that expansion. They have been through, this is a land development approval. They've been through the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission recommends approval. Staff recommends approval of the land development plan contingent upon the approval of the borough engineer's outstanding comments.
Discussion. Okay, agenda item.
Item number 4 is the Havana Apartments conditional use approval. There's 2 items on the agenda tonight for this approval. The first one is the conditional use approval. The second one is their land development application. You guys remember we had the public hearing last month for the conditional use approval. This was the old Holiday Park. I was going to say Adelaide Stevens. This was the old Holiday Park elementary school. The applicant is proposing to turn it into 39 single-family apartments. They're 1- and 2-bedroom apartments. These are market-rate apartments. This is not subsidized housing. This is market-rate apartments.
Discussion. I'm sorry, Mike.
This item is, so again, there's 2 items. This item is the approval of the conditional use. It's something called an adaptive reuse of the property. That was also the subject of the public hearing that you had about a half an hour ago.
Any discussion? Okay, agenda item.
Second item on that same proposed development is the corresponding preliminary and final land development application approval. Staff does recommend approval conditioned upon the requirements of the borough engineer's letter dated 6/13.
Discussion. Okay, agenda item.
Item number 6 is the Alvey Lawrence subdivision approval, and 6, 8, 9, and 10 are all for the same development. So I'm going to skip down to 7 real quick. This is and the only reason they're out of order is because the way they came in, the applications themselves are numbered in that order. Linda Edgar lot line revision is a simple subdivision. You accepted it as complete last month. The applicant is just requesting permission to add about a half an acre to an existing property across from the Renton Mine property. And this had to do with not having access to her own driveway. She had been accessing the property off the mine property for years, and they're just trying to rectify that problem.
Okay, discussion? Agenda item.
So 6, 8, 9, and 10 are all the same thing. 6, 8, and 9 are all actually just subdivision and consolidation plan approvals. These were all accepted as complete in prior months. The Alvey Lawrence subdivision, the Temple Sinai subdivision are requested subdivisions by the developer of the Patriot Estates plan because they needed to segregate the property. The property itself is partially located in Plum and partially in Penn Hills. Step 1, segregating the Penn Hills property from the Plum property. Step 2, they did not have adequate access on Davidson Road, so they purchased a piece of property from the Temple Sinai Cemetery there to have access to Davidson Road for an egress. And then step 3 is combining all that back together in one lot on which to develop the proposed residential development. So those are the 3 subdivision and/or consolidation plans. They were all accepted as they're simple subdivisions and were accepted as complete either last month or the month prior, because I think the Alvey Lawrence one was 2 months ago. At this time, staff does recommend approval of the applications.
Any discussion? Okay, agenda item.
For all, I would assume that's for 6, 8, and 9, correct?
And 10.
And so 10 is the actual PRD, and if you wouldn't mind, Mr. President, I'd just like to explain quickly.
Sure.
So the PRD stands for Planned Residential Development. That's this whole public hearing process that everybody went through on that residential development. At this time, the applicant is requesting for tentative PRD approval, which is recommended at this time. I just want to clarify for everybody, the tentative PRD approval simply means that they are now permitted to go on to final submission for application for approval, which will then go through the process with Planning Commission and Council again. The applicant, should you give them tentative approval next Monday, the applicant will have 6 months from that point to make their final application submission. And then that process will go through the MPC planning process like every other application does.
And this needs to be a council action.
You either have to approve it or deny it,
Okay,
yes.
that's great. Any discussion?
Yes, I got a question. As I was not here last month for the meetings, they asked for a lot of exemptions to our ordinance. How many were granted?
Well, technically, you grant the exemption, so none.
Good. But I mean, they asked for, no, they asked for a
They
lot.
asked for them as part of the process, that's correct, but you grant the exemptions. This board grants
This
the
grant
exemptions.
for grants, and we've
Yes.
granted none.
Nothing's been, this approval at this time is for their tentative approval of their preliminary submission. That's all it is.
So Harry, sorry. So as part of the tentative PRD, we'll address those 10 modification requests. Actually, there's 9. One of them is not even required. But the one that you were interested in was number 10. And that was their request. So let me back up. So the ordinance requires that in a PRD, they construct those houses of stone and brick, 100%. Planning Commission had looked at that. Planning Commission had recommended the front face only up to the first floor. Subsequently, we met with the Council Committee of Economic Development. They recommended the entire front would be stone or brick, and then the builder would be free. But we would also word it that council encourages that they use stone and brick or hardy board siding on the rest of those elevations. So that'll be part of that document that would be examined and approved or denied on Monday.
Okay. The other question, and I missed this too, was with the issue with the second egress-ingress.
And all I can say is that that committee of council had recommended that the streets be connected, but there's a gate there separating the two. I can't say that, you know, that's the recommendation coming forward. Council's gonna have to figure that out before Monday. But there are other issues that Mike and I had talked about.
I don't think they need to figure that out before Monday, but they can ultimately do that before final approval.
That was going to be my question, because this is tentative. This would allow us to move forward in that process, but still figure out some of those items that still need to be discussed.
Yes, I think you can state, if that's council's intention, to state that, something like that, that you can, as part of the approval process.
I think there's still a
but
lot of
I don't-
questions
I don't
about
think
this
everything
plan.
has to be resolved for the tentative approval.
Okay.
And it won't be, quite honestly.
Excuse me, Mike, under the MPC, for PRD, tentative approval, any conditions or modifications start right then. They're either approved or denied. You can't go back and put additional conditions on them with subsequent phases. The MPC says the tentative approval is basically you're allowing them to proceed with the plans, and the final plans are just nothing more than the recorded plat.
Well, I would just, I mean, I don't want to get into it here publicly, but I would just dispute that putting a gate is a condition, but,
Oh, yeah, I would agree with you there.
okay.
Well, that's a different take on everything.
Yes.
Yeah, because that kind of says we need to have everything lined up and ready to go.
To Mr. Delaney's comments, you're not gonna get a chance to come back and add additional conditions on it.
So
But-
they,
But based on the conditions that they submitted to us, the 9 that Dave had
Those are the conditions plus whatever else, what other conditions?
Right, so those are modifications and waivers that have nothing to do with this issue you're talking about right
Yeah,
now.
I was just gonna say, you're confusing these two things.
Yeah, that's-
There's modifications that they're requesting, and then there's conditions that you can place upon a conditional use that are your conditions that you want to. The whole point behind a conditional use is that council has the right to place conditions. That's what Mr. Maital's talking about. You can say, we will approve this based on the condition that you do X.
Yeah.
The modifications are a separate thing that can be, that's not part of the conditional use application.
Understood.
So we can still discuss the road.
No, I think you need to decide whether or not you're gonna connect the road, whether or not you place the gate on the road is still something you could do at any time. It's actually your road, you could do it at any time you chose.
I'm for making the road with the gate. If we don't do the gate, then we don't do the road.
I agree 100%.
I think everybody's,
I think we're all on board with
well,
that.
again, let me clarify for me. The gate would only be accessed by emergency services.
Correct.
Police and fire, in an emergency.
No, no.
And plow trucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Public Works, for the plowing in the winter. They can open a gate so they can plow it to make their job a little bit easier, but the gate is gonna stay closed, but there'll be like a Knox box or something on it, so the fire departments, police can access it if needed,
Right.
but it's gonna stay closed unless, you know, in a winter storm, we're gonna open it up. If it's gonna storm for 2 days, it's gonna stay open for 2 days, so we can plow that and keep that road clear in case it needs to be accessed.
But it's gonna be very limited access based on emergency use, not just.
Very limited,
yes.
very limited.
Okay,
It'll only be the people that have the key to the gate itself.
okay.
Okay, we'll make that an agenda item.
Okay, item number 11 is the ZHB resignation. In your agenda packet, you have a resignation from Tim Joyce, who unfortunately, he's been a great volunteer and for the community for many years. He's also a staffer for Senator Brewster. Unfortunately, he moved from Plum to Monroeville, so he can no longer be on your zoning hearing board, so you have his letter of resignation to accept next week. And then also, we do have a letter of interest from Dave Majernik to take his place, so that would be a second item. So those, again, that would be 2 items to place on the agenda.
Any discussion? Okay, agenda item.
Item number 12 is the municipal records retention resolution. Every year, we do that record destruction resolution. We're destroying certain records that we're allowed to, in conjunction with the Records Retention Act. However, every once in a while, the Records Retention Act itself is amended, and whenever it's amended by the State Assembly, municipalities must adopt a resolution to adhere to the new amended regulations adopted in the Records Retention Act. So the resolution that you have in your agenda packets is just a resolution saying that Plum Boro will adhere to the recently adopted laws by the Pennsylvania State Assembly regarding records retention.
Red tape.
Agenda item.
Item number 13 is an executive session item to discuss contractual negotiations. Item number 14 is the civil service amendment. And I provided council with a summary of those proposed amendments. I will go through them very briefly. We are proposing to add the position of corporal to our rank. Right now, we have patrolman, sergeant, lieutenant. We are proposing to add corporal into that rank. We have 6 sergeants right now. We're proposing to go to 3 sergeants and 3 corporals. Financially, it's a wash, as you all know, we've discussed. But it does give officers with less experience the opportunity to move into a supervisory role. And it also enables us to have more segregation within the rank. Because right now we have 6 sergeants and there's no hierarchy there. So that's one of the first changes in the civil service regs, which would be to add that position. And then there's all the job duties and responsibilities associated with that position that are identified in the proposed regulation changes. And then there also are changes to the elimination of the detective lieutenant position, which exists in the civil service regs, but we haven't had in over 25 years. And then clarification on the responsibilities of the patrol and administrative lieutenants. The other major change in the proposed change, by the way, in the regs is we are proposing some changes to the testing process for the entry-level police patrol positions. The main change in that is right now, officers, when they take the written test and the oral examination, their score is broken down, weighted, if you will, 60-40. And we are proposing, I'm going to get that wrong, we are proposing to change it to 70-30. Do I have that right? I think I do. It's in the summary. It's on the last page of the summary. So that would be a change in how the written score versus the verbal score is weighted. And then we're also proposing, the chief is proposing a change in the physical fitness test itself. So those are the changes proposed in the civil service regs. All of these changes have been reviewed with and discussed with the Civil Service Commission, and those changes are recommended by the Civil Service Commission. So the corporal position, any one of these positions is a civil service position. So all of these things, promotion will be done by testing, and they're all civil service positions, so they have to all follow the same testing procedures that the entry-level position does. At this time, we're just asking for permission to advertise the ordinance to change this. So the actual change would be done subsequent to, so if you wanted to, if you still agreed, at the October meeting. We're just asking the authorization to advertise these proposed changes, and if there are changes the council would like to see as they're proposed, that's certainly your prerogative to change before you actually adopt the ordinance.
So I guess 2 comments, just to be clear. So the change from sergeant to corporal is going to be done through attrition, right?
Yeah, we're not, yeah, that's a good point, Mr. Seitz, yes.
And the second thing is in the exam thing, the idea is to reduce the value of the written exam and increase the value of the oral exam.
Yes, and the rationale behind that is that we've found that some officers who have a lot more experience on the job, but might not be great test takers, they tend to be lower on the list because they're not great test takers, but they actually have great, law enforcement experience, and we feel like they'd be better, be very good cops.
Yeah, no, I support that. I was just making sure I understood it.
Great. Any more discussion? Agenda item.
Also on your agenda, but I was not able, because it came up very late today, the chief actually found out about a grant opportunity through the PA Chiefs of Police Association. So in your agenda packet is a letter of authorization for him to apply for a grant for the body cameras that you approved last month, the new body cameras.
Nice. That's great.
So just want to clarify, if we're successful in getting the grant, the letter of authorization stipulates that we agree, that the borough agrees to continue to fund the body cameras for 2 years beyond the 5-year grant program, which we were already, I mean, council was already committed to doing it in perpetuity anyway, so that's not really
Right.
much of a change.
Mike, is that a straight-up grant or a matching grant?
That's a straight-up grant.
That's great.
And actually, just some kudos to the chief. He actually found another one through the county, through Sam DeMarco, and he might be able to get another 2,000 per camera. Wow. So, and he's just kind of done this on his own, so.
Tell them, great job.
Yeah, seriously.
So I assume that's an agenda item as well.
That will be an
That's
agenda
awesome
item.
work.
Okay. Item number 15 is the library board resignation and appointment. You have in your agenda packets similar to the zoning hearing board situation, you have a library board member who had to resign for personal reasons, and you have a former library board member who would like to reapply and be appointed to fill the position. So those would be 2 items as well.
Discussion? Agenda item.
And then also, it's not on your agenda under Parks and Rec, but I would like to bring out, Mr. Rich Lang has requested, he's done this in the past, he does a softball tournament every year over, it is just softball, right?
Yeah.
At the ball fields here. And every year he comes in and has requested it, so I'd like to add that to the agenda for next week to approve his request to use the ball fields. He's, according to Mr. Dern, he's coordinated everything with PBSA to make sure it's not a conflict. So you guys have granted him use of that, and then he works through Mr. Saboshley's department and gets the proper paperwork and insurance certificates and everything. It's never been an issue.
Agenda item.
Next item is the Renton Phase 3 design. This does not need to be on the agenda for a vote next week. Dave and I thought we'd like to present it to you just to make sure. When we originally put together the project for Renton, we did not include 3 pickleball courts and a bathroom. So, council over the last few months has asked us to include those things. Just want to make sure, because this is now about another 150,000 maybe,
Yes.
to add those things to this overall project. This is a 3-phase project. We've already spent about $750,000 renovating the park. And so just before we commit ourselves with the engineer, with the design, and putting this out to bid and everything, I just want to make sure that you are comfortable with the design. I will tell you that it's a rough budget right now, but in the proposed budget has a prefabbed bathroom. I mean, I would suggest that we'd probably do better with a like a laid block, split face block bathroom or something like that on a poured slab. But we can talk about that at a later date. But we've built in 3 pickleball courts at the Renton Park. We were not able to get additional pickleball courts in, even though there's, as you look at the map, there might look like there's additional space, but that slope is very steep, and in order to do it, we'd have to have a pretty significant retaining wall to have pickleball courts above the other ones. So just wanted to get your input on that and make sure that you're okay as we move forward with this. It, again, does not need to be voted on next week.
I'm good with it.
Yeah, so we can change some of these designs, right? Like you said, we could change the restroom or
Yes.
add something, add benches or whatever.
Mike, if
Okay.
we go forward with this, is there an estimated date of completion?
Well, this would be a spring '23 project, so I don't know how long, I don't know, the construction's timeframe might be, 3 months, There's significant work there to put in the pickleball courts and the walking trail around it, so.
Yeah, and we're just embarking, last month, council approved preliminary engineering of that. So we're working on, a final cost estimate. Our goal was to be out to bid, early next year, just like we did for Phase 2 this year, and then be under construction in spring, summertime.
Great.
Okay.
Agenda item.
No, it doesn't need to be an agenda item.
It's
Just
not an
update.
agenda item.
Is everybody okay with the design? And if there,
It looks good.
if you guys have additional input to give us, this will be on your agenda at some point for your permission to put it out to bid when we're at final design.
We found grants for 1 and 2, didn't we?
Yeah, Dave's group was able to get.
So we already have an $81,000 grant for Phase 3.
Oh,
We're under contract, and that contract expires June of 2024.
nice work.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Item number 17 is the Plum Mustang Foundation Small Games of Chance license. So we don't actually issue the small games of chance license. That's issued through the treasurers, the county treasurers throughout the Commonwealth. However, when you have a group that isn't specifically identified as a 501c3 or a nonprofit, when they make application to the treasurer's office, somebody has to certify that they're a true community group, a nonprofit, a civic group. So the process is that the municipality or the school district, if it's a school district group, would adopt a resolution certifying that this group is in fact a civic group that would be eligible to apply for the small games of chance license through the county. So what you have in front of you is a resolution in your agenda packets from Mr. Dice to authorize that.
Mike, just so we're clear, is this our in-house organization, or is this the high school?
So
They're, go ahead.
I'm one of the trustees of it, or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call. Dan's wife's on it too.
Yeah.
There's about, Dan Moriarty's on it. There's about 20, 30 people on it maybe.
Yeah.
It was a dormant organization through the school district, so they decided to not have the school district involved in it. So now it's sort of off of that. But it's for the kids, like they're doing that
To raise
Rachel's project
scholarships and-
for, like a $250 or $500 scholarship.
Yeah.
That the teachers can put some of the students' names in. It's very worthwhile. And it's
like it.
moving forward pretty good.
Yeah.
Mike Caligiuri's on it.
Okay, agenda item.
Item number 18, bear with me, this is going to get, there's a lot of numbers here. At item number 18, we do this every September, we're required to do it by law. It's the MMO resolution, the minimum municipal obligation. That's the amount of money that the borough, that every municipality is required by law to put into their various pension plans to make sure that the pension plans are funded appropriately according to the law anyway. So the MMO you adopt every year. It has to be adopted prior to September 30th of every year. The MMO in front of you right now for 2023 is about $1.5 million. I think the $1,514,078. That is up $176,000 from last year. However, I don't know if you guys remember that the MMO is calculated by the actuary based on something called the biannual AVR, which is an actuarial evaluation of the plan. And that AVR is done every other year. It's done every odd numbered year. Last year, due to the timing, we were actually able to use either the 2019 AVR or the 2021 AVR in the calculation. It's perfectly permissible within the law to use either one of those evaluations. Council chose last year to adopt the MMO based on the 2019 AVR, which was lower by $176,000. However, we budgeted the higher amount in the 2022 budget, which was $1,512,000. So the increase this year, I'm sorry, it was $27,000 lower. The increase this year from a budgetary standpoint is only $28,000. However, the MMO number for the police department looks much differently because you adopted the lower number on the resolution, but you budgeted the higher number and we're paying the higher number. And the reason we did that last year was just because at the end of the year, you don't know how things are going to go financially, and that gives you $150,000 leeway in case you need it. So, long and short is, the difference in the MMO between last year and this year is $176,000. The difference that impacts the budget between last year and this year is $28,000. The MMO must be adopted by resolution next week.
Discussion? Okay, agenda item.
Item number 19 is the proposal from Mayor Dussel for the independent auditing services for the Plum Community Center and the Plum Library. A few months back, when we were meeting with the auditors in the Finance Committee, one of the things that was brought up was a request to get a proposal from the borough's auditor to perform the auditing services for both the library and the Plum Community Center to maybe take advantage of some better pricing and help them out financially. You have a proposal in your agenda packet for that, for those services from Mayor Dussel. The combined expense, one's about $10,000, one's about $8,000. The community center is about $10,000, the library is about $8,000. And then that's a 4-year proposal that you have in front of you that goes up a few $100 for each entity per year. But it would be an increase in the municipal budget for 2023 of about $18,000, and then again, creeping up a little bit each year after that. This was just something that the Finance Committee had wanted council to consider. We need to either build it into the budget as we're working on the budget right now, or you can accept the proposal next week and we're done with it. If you don't want to accept it next week, if you want to give it some more thought, you can do it anytime up until the end of the year. But if you're going to pursue it, I'd appreciate letting us know at least now, so we can build it into the budget.
I'd say let's do it and work it into the budget.
Yeah, I agree.
So then it would be appropriate next week to to add it to the agenda and accept the proposal.
Okay, great.
Item number 20 is an executive session item that we need to discuss on an insurance release and settlement. And finally, item number 21 is also an executive session item on a proposed condemnation resolution. And that's all I have for the public agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Any public comment this evening? Looks like it's your show, Dee.
Oh, wow. Well, needless to say, I'm very distressed that someone from the board has resigned. I don't know, I had no knowledge of that or was not informed of that. My question is, when you address the resignation and appointment for the zoning hearing board, you named who resigned and you named who was interested in the appointment. Is there any reason why that was not done with the library resignation?
Just forgot. No reason at all. Just when I was talking, the words didn't come out.
Well, may I ask who resigned?
Yes, it is.
Beckler?
Yeah, Jessica Beckler.
dear
She
God.
resigned. According to her resignation letter, she works at a library elsewhere and was told that this
She's
was a
the
conflict of
director.
interest.
Yeah, she's a director in the
Yes.
Westmoreland County
And
Library.
the person that would like to be reappointed is Amy McShane.
I don't remember her, but that's fine. I didn't know, was it advertised, as it normally is, or just recruited?
I would disagree that we normally advertise them. We normally advertise them once a year for all
Okay.
vacancies, but we don't typically advertise vacancies as they come up.
Understood. I want to address tonight some issues that deal with appointments and applications. In 1989, I made a personal commitment, to do everything I could, physically, mentally, and financially, to bring library service to Plum. This was years before there was a recognized library in the area. It was years before there was a board of trustees established, and it was years before the ACLA, Allegheny County Library System, was established. Now, some of you have known me for quite a few years. Some of you know my children. Some of you even know my grandchildren. You have 4 generations of my family living, working, and paying taxes in Plum. But all of the years that I have been involved, I have never asked any council member, past or present, for consideration in regard to appointments. I didn't feel that I should do that, and it's not me. And I have never spoken to an appointing official either against any applicant or in favor of any applicant. My concern is, in the near future, you will be presented with an application packet to be accepted as policy. For the appointment to boards and commissions, You have maybe already received that packet, I'm not sure. My concern with the packet that's going to be presented to you I understand this is going to be policy for all appointments to all boards and commissions, but I'm concerned with the one that it would be applied to the library board. One of the issues, or one of the steps in becoming a candidate that's going to be proposed in this application packet, is to review and accept the library board trustees' duties, responsibilities, and job description outlined in this document. Complete and submit the attached application and resume, and I think that should also submit references. I mean, it can't hurt, right? But my main concern is that when filling a vacancy, the Plum Boro Council will review the applications, and this is the kicker, with input from the current members of the library board. In my estimation and my experience, this is not going to be good for the library. It's not going to be good for the community. It's going to breed nepotism. It's going to allow covert meetings, because it has happened already. And I don't think that, as I said, it will be good for applicants to be judged by members of the board, the existing board, who may be more qualified than those who are judging them. I think I proceed on the theory that everybody over the age of 18 has the right to apply for a board or commission. And I feel they should have the right for a reasonable expectation of being appointed. Now, I'm not saying anybody who applies should be appointed, but don't want to turn off people who are willing to, volunteer and give their time and talents and treasure.
Dee, there's nothing up here that's coming forward that we're going to be looking at a sitting board of trustees to have their input on someone we're going to appoint.
It's already happened.
No,
Paul.
it hasn't.
Sure it has.
No, it hasn't.
Well, my experience, I got a call from the manager and I was told that I was being appointed as a trustee emeritus in recognition of my contribution to the community and the library board.
Right.
Okay, in a meeting after that, I was told by trustee Meredith Hadeen that she was invited to a borough meeting with the manager, a member from council, and she was invited as the liaison between the library and
No.
I'm just telling you what she told me.
I'm telling you that's not true. If there was a meeting with the library board, the library board wanted to have a meeting with us. It wasn't that we wanted to have a meeting with the library board.
I'm sure she wasn't, she said, I'm sure she wanted the meeting, and.
Well, at any
and the
time any
president-
board member comes and wants a meeting with us, we're more than happy to meet with them. But we don't reach out to the board at a particular, the zoning or the library or the senior
I
center,
understand that. I
asking to have a
understand
meeting to
that.
discuss candidates.
I understand that from your perspective, but she also stated that I was only appointed by her endorsement, and if she didn't want me to
That's
be
not true.
appointed, well, that's what she told me.
Well, I'm sitting here telling you that it's not true.
I don't know, maybe you were the council person that was at the meeting and know that firsthand, I don't know. But anyway, that concerns me, and I don't think that, as you said, you said that you're not going to take that input from the current library members. You will hear that this is advised by ACLA, And that's true. ACLA does, advise the library board to have input. They also advise to recruit, which is good, I think. But if you're going, they also have a lot of other advice on issues. And if you're going to accept one as a policy, why not accept them all? I mean, they advise term limits. They advise that the definition of the role of the director versus the board. They advise a lot of things. And as I said, you shouldn't pick and choose. You should either follow all their advice, which is just that, it's advice, it's not a mandate. Or, and not just pick and choose to what might suit somebody's personal agenda. Obviously, as I said before, I am distressed over the resignation of Jessica. She was one that I had recruited and spoke to run for the board, which is we're advised to do. And I know she has recently gained a position as director of, I believe it's Penn Trafford Library, one of the libraries in Westmoreland County. But she would have, I feel sad that she is going to be leaving because she was a good trustee and had a lot of experience and knowledge. That she could have, had the potential of being an excellent trustee. But, everybody has to do what they feel they have to do. Before I close, and I'm sorry if I'm running over my 3 minutes, Mr. Mayor, I don't know, and council members, I want to give an acknowledgement and a thank you to the first responders, both on EMS and unfortunately I had cause not long ago to avail myself of their services, and I have to say they are very professional, very caring, and do a good job. So I just wanted to recognize that for them and thank them publicly for their care. And maybe I won't see you again. We'll see.
Thanks, Dee.
I've come before council more in the last year than I have in the previous 30. Well, that's the way it is.
Thanks, Dee. Anybody else for public comment? Okay, seeing none, we are adjourned. Thank you all.
So on that letter, I'd ask you don't write it until, I'll give her 30 days, right? Like at the end of that 30 days, we're gonna have a contractor lined up, so I'll give the letter. Because if I get the letter at the